The forum topic is AKC purposely bred purebred dogs and the preservationist breeders who bring them into the world. Who are we? Where are we headed? How AKC can assist in our success. Presenters are Bill Shelton of Coventry Pembroke Welsh Corgis and AKC's Herding Group Breeder of the Year 2017, and Doug Johnson of Classics, Clumber, Sussex, Welsh Springer Spaniel, and English Toy Spaniels, and AKC Sporting Group Breeder of the Year 2005. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome. We're most appreciative.
Okay, so we thought we would start with something, a little exercise we wanted to try. If everyone could stand up for us. It doesn't get a whole lot harder, I promise. So if you can remain standing if you've bred a litter in the last year. See, that wasn't long. Remain standing if you've bred a litter, if you've bred 2 litters in the last year. And remain standing if you've bred 5 litters in the last year. 1. My hero. That's okay, that's part of the drill. So that's very interesting. And a little sad, probably, to Bill and I. I've bred 9 litters this year, and Bill has bred 8 litters this year. Collectively, we have bred over 200 AKC champions. We've been in the sport 80 years collectively. We have bred, he's the Judge of the Year, as he just pointed out. We've both been nominated for Judge of the Year. We've both been AKC Breeders of the Year, Judge of the Year, 11 times group winners at Westminster or the AKC Invitational.
That's collectively.
Yes. Yeah. And then twice Best in Show at Westminster. So we come to you today with a lot of history, a lot of breeding. And so what started this was several years ago you had a breeder-to-breeder forum at the AKC Invitational Show in Florida. It lasted for 2 years. And Bill and I, at that point, did a seminar on better breeding, the art of breeding dogs, and the science of breeding dogs. And from that became this new way of thinking about things, which was actually a return to old. And what it was preservation of genetics, preservation of breeds.
And purposeful bred dogs.
And to breed dogs for a purpose, on purpose, with purpose. So with that, we started a mantra of purposeful bred dogs, the message, getting the message out. About 3 days prior to Westminster 3 years ago, Bill did something that really changed the framework for us. And it was assimilating into popular culture these terms. So talk to him about what you did.
All right, so we were invited here by you to speak about preservation breeding and purposeful breeders. And simple things on social media like posts like this are what brought interest to it, and have actually, when we first did it 3 years ago, and we encouraged the people to, before our show of shows, and the Invitational is also one of those events, is to put up something about your dog and talk about preservation breeders and purposeful bred dogs. And so we ended up with a variety of things, but this one kind of speaks to it all, and we're going to get into how it evolved and everything. But this one says, if you can't read it, it says, invest in a purposely bred dog's future, offering what random bred dogs can't. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. And these are all the things that purposeful bred dogs are. They're predictable, health, heritage, and dictated welfare. Do your research, we have. So all these messages about purpose-bred preservationists creating happier, healthy futures for all dogs is what we all do already. But we put the words to the meaning. And as we said, it actually went viral. It went all over the world. And we had even people like the woman who Purebred Dogs Exposed contacted us, wanted to know what we were doing. why we were doing it. And we said, well, we're doing what we've done forever. We're promoting who we are in a new collective way. Let me give this to you.
Okay.
And go to the, yeah. So we thought about messaging, and so just before that, what happened was we were seeing that breeders were kind of in the doldrums, right? That we were all being told things that we shouldn't breed, we should breed less, we should not produce, it's expensive, you're doing bad things, and all of these sort of things. So we thought about these things, and we know that words are powerful, and that we had to create positive messaging. And that through that positive messaging, then we had to disseminate and convey that message. And we've been doing that for over the last 3 years. It's been very successful, and we'll tell you more about that. So, of course, at the end of the day, what we need to be doing is it needs to be assimilated into culture. And so that's one thing that we would like the AKC, and they do for us, is that to move that message quicker and into the general public. And, we do a great job of figuring out ideas among ourselves, but we don't do a fabulous job about getting that message to legislators and to the general public. We need to do more of that. We exist in a vacuum, primarily.
And one of the things, too, on that point is that we've found through doing this and through social media that the fancy have picked these things up, and they're running with it. So they're almost ahead of what's going on behind the scenes.
So these words, a simple thing of making, well, we're going to jump to this slide. All right, so let's just talk a little bit. So evolutionary branding's all around us today. We see corporations and organizations doing it on a regular basis, and we feel, and we've seen that it works for us, and that it's time that we perhaps do the same. Because look at these anthropomorphic things that the shelters have done and have worked particularly well for them. They turned dog pounds into shelters. Isn't that fabulous? That's great marketing. And then beyond that, they turned strays and mongrels into adoptable rescues. They even took one of our words, didn't they? Rescue, because we were the inventors of rescue. And so even beyond that, we adopt, don't shop. Wow. We as breeders have to deal with this now more and more and more. There's more people who know this term than know preservation breeding or purposefully bred. So here we are, we come to this, and these are the words we use, right? Purebred dog breeder. Well, we've discovered that a lot of these words are no longer palatable, personable, acceptable in our culture. I hate to tell you, because purebred is no more. So even in the invention of this word purposeful or purposefully bred, we even hear it's being used across the board now. We even hear AKC employees, instead of using the word, not instead of, but as well as, using the word purebred, they're using the word purpose-bred. Because see, it's no longer good enough to be purebred or to be mixed bred. You have to be purposefully bred with intent, and that's part of our message through all of this. And then the other word that we discovered is not a good word any longer, unfortunately, is breeder. Now, we can't get rid of that word. We have to still use that word, but in using it, we decided to add the word, which is a word that young people, millennials, everybody loves, the word preservation. So, and that's truly who we are. So, purposely bred purebred dogs and the preservationists who intentionally bring them into this world. And so we were talking about, and this is why we're here today, is because we were asked to explain these topics. And as we just mentioned, this branding has opened doors for us. It started a movement and began a conversation where other descriptions have not. When you're standing in the airport and they go, "What do you do?" And I say, "Well, I'm a breeder." They go, a million things come to mind, but not positive things. But if I tell them I'm a preservationist breeder, they go, "Oh, well, what is that? What is that?" And it opens a dialogue, a conversation. So words are powerful and descriptive and make us look in a different light to things rather than just the same old. And like I mentioned earlier, it is in reality who we really are and what we aspire to do and be. And it's brought us here today, all together. All right, so let's get into a little bit about what Purposefully Bred are. And many of you, this is going to be, information that you already know and you exercise every day in your breeding programs. But purposely bred purebred dogs are intentionally bred for predictable type, health, and welfare. And we have much of the American Kennel Club, thank you, as breeders for the many things that you do. As far as, look at what a fabulous organization the Canine Health Foundation is. We're going to talk more about that. And why don't we talk more about it? Why doesn't the general public know and donate to the Canine Health Foundation, just like they donate to the HSUS? Why don't we have members joining the Canine Health Foundation? And why don't we raise that $128 million that they raise annually for our cause? Why don't we do something like that? Purpose-bred dogs are bred predictably for specific breed purpose and type. With this comes an inherited and predisposed intellect and disposition for purpose. Now, all of you have different breeds, and all those breeds are bred for certain things, but even beyond that, they're predisposed to being the best biddable pets in the world. They are. I mean, this colony of dogs, they're intellectually bred for certain things to suit your lifestyle. You know, we take it for granted that these dogs come in sizes, coats, colors, and the fabulous thing is predictable intellects. That will suit. You all have a different idea of what you want in a dog, from a lap companion to a dog that's going to go out and run with you on the track. So that's something that goes way beyond and is incredible for purebred dogs. And we're the only colony that exists that it's like this.
We make those the original designer dogs. And so I think it's important that we sort of bring back these terms and start using these terms to identify what we actually did. We created. If you needed a dog to do something, you created a dog to do it. And those were the designer dogs.
Now, we mentioned here quantitatively bred towards greater health and predictable health patterns. Now, the reason it's kind of mentioned that way is that, sure, you know what? We devise and have invented through the Canine Health Foundation and other organizations DNA test. We're allowing other people to tell our message. We need to be telling legislators our message. We need to be telling the general public our message. The reason we've developed these tests and identified scientific anomalies is so we may breed our dogs healthier, and so we can selectively take dogs and breed them forward and make them better. But the AR uses this information to show, there's whole web pages dedicated to it, if you haven't seen them, why each breed is incredibly unhealthy by our own documentation. So we need to tell our message. We need a message to tell the general public and legislators particularly. It's interesting, the AKC PAC, we just had the conference in DC. It was fabulous, by the way, and thank you AKC once again. Another fabulous organization, which I hope you all donate to. They need more funds to do more for us. And if you live in a variety of places, you're from all over the U.S. Doug and I are from the Midwest, from two states, Missouri and Indiana. I also have a home in California, so I know about the two ends of the spectrum of radical animal rights and a state that has a model breeding program. There is no box in the state of California that you can mark to say, I want to be a dog breeder and I'm recognized by anyone. No. As a matter of fact, yeah, that's a very hard pill to swallow there. But in our states, there are, all breeders are licensed and they are inspected and they are educated, and that's another whole program that we can go into one day. But anyway, we were talking about these intentionally bred intellects make purebred dogs predisposed. And so we'll just go, you guys already know most all these, but there's so many of them, and you go through all of them. Yeah. And,
okay.
Yeah, and you can see, there's a big variety of them, and so I think the intellect of purebred dogs is specifically something we need to talk about. And this is really important that we all take for granted, isn't it? Is that purebred dogs' whole being is based on purpose. None of it happens randomly. And so in that, do you want to talk about this?
You're good.
Yeah. All right. All right, so intentionally bred. So there's two parts to this. So you as a purebred dog breeder, you know what the purposes of your breed, whether it's a gun dog, a lap dog, or anything like that. But beyond that, purebred dogs are purposely bred by people who have who do all the things we previously mentioned about dedicated welfare, predictability, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that kind of tells you a little bit about the whole idea about purposeful bred, and it really covers a lot of things, but we don't have all day to go into each and every one of them. So we're going to just briefly go over what preservationist breeders are, and of course, these breeders are specifically breed for type. We've already talked about chronicling their heritage and history over the decades and centuries through their individual AKC parent clubs. Thank you, AKC parent clubs. Thank you for everything you do for each individual breed. It's terrific. We need to do even more. And the AKC parent clubs, we're going to talk about them being instrumental in helping preservationist breeders go forward and do a better job and to get the word out. And obviously, I think there was one on the last one. Could I just, why is this a priority, particularly when compared to all other known canine colonies? Well, we've already answered a lot of that, haven't we, about predictability, dedicated welfare, and all those things we should go on and talk about. So, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, sorry. Okay. All right, so we asked the question, why should purposefully bred dogs and preservation breeders be a priority when considered a family member, particularly when compared to other random bred colonies of dogs? Well, we've answered that question too, but we're going to talk about it even more, and about the predictability, accountability, quantitative health, and that bottom part says dedicated welfare. All right, so here we go. So let's just look at, it's simple, isn't it? We look at the AKC purposefully bred, and then the random bred. We've chose to use the word random bred because it covers most all other breeds, and not breeds, excuse me, dogs that are randomly bred, and it covers the whole spectrum. It's another part of the verbiage that we like to use rather than feeding into words that
it's a differentiator.
That the animal rights people feed to us, and that we also use their verbiage a lot. So we use random bred, and we have more people using random bred because your mind immediately goes to, wow, random bred. The opposite of a dog who is purposefully bred. So we've already talked about almost all these things about how purposely bred dogs are brought into this world with a dedicated safety network, a breeder, a lifeline mentor, and the multiple of AKC programs. We're doing a great deal, and we encourage you to do more, and we'll talk more about that. And they're raised, trained predictably, bred for health, to meet life challenges. Most importantly, because random dogs aren't bred, raised, or trained to meet life challenges. That's why, unfortunately, there's a large recidivism among shelters, and that it's an unfortunate thing. And can I tell you, Doug and I and all of the people in this room, we all believe that every dog deserves a happy, healthy life. But inasmuch as, the next slide.
You ready to go?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so this is something the NAI did, and Mars did a 10-year study, that less than 5% of dogs in shelters are purebred, identifiable purebreds. So boy, we all know that in shelters that a lot of purebred dogs are not identified well in shelters. So these numbers may be skewed a little bit, but anyway, less than 5%. And so what do these numbers imply? Well, we believe that purebred dogs are statistically less likely to wind up in shelters, and most all breeders are placing their dogs well because it's less than 5%. So that means that we need to identify, or the shelter projects need to identify who the other 95% of dogs are if they really genuinely want to find a cure or a result for the other 95% of dogs, those random bred dogs. Would you like to say anything?
No, good.
All right. All right, so rescuing purebred dogs from extinction, that's what you're doing as breeders. There are many breeds. There are 90-some low-entry breeds, and my statistics sometimes are a little fuzzy, so you might, they're fairly good numbers from the AKC mostly. But 90% of dogs are low-entry breeds, and that means that they're low in numbers in the United States, and that they're not bred as frequently, and there aren't as many in existence. So those breeds are in jeopardy every day that we are here. Like, let's take Dandy Dinmonts. We lost one of our premier breeders just a few years ago, and we still have some breeders, but now we're down one. So the numbers will probably start decreasing, or should I say are. And so those are all issues. You know, if you're in a breed, Doug is in a breed, Clumbers and Sussex Spaniels. Oh, yeah, okay.
No, go ahead. Here. Oh, we'll switch. Okay, my turn. It's fun to just listen to you. So the reality is that I've lived this for 35 years with my breeds, and so this is where I get to kind of talk about that. Here you go. Our breeds are dying, and that's a problem, and that's why we kind of started this, is to keep the strength happening. And at the Breeder Seminar, we talked about the Dandy Dinmont Terrier and how losing one breeder is devastating to a breed like that. And what do you do other than encourage people to go out and breed, which is why we started the day by seeing who's actually breeding dogs. Because my new mantra is, save a breed, breed a litter. Go out and get another breed. If you have one breed, adopt another. Get involved in a second breed so that we don't see these breeds vanishing. And it is difficult, and like Bill says, we have to expand our tent to bring in, I know that people hate to talk about the large volume breeder, but there's a purpose and a place for that large volume breeder to keep breeds going. And it does. And you want to talk a little bit about accountability?
Sure, but let's just first really quickly, in talking about high volume breeders or breeders who breed, you all have a different idea about what responsible breeding is. And that's another word that we've chose to change, and that we use the word accountable now, because you are genuinely accountable to the American Kennel Club. You are accountable to your local jurisdiction. You're accountable to the USDA. But you don't have to be accountable to everyone's idea of responsible in this room, because trust me, you individually will not fulfill those requirements, because everybody has a different idea. So we want you to be accountable, and we should be accountable to those specific rules, guidelines, and laws.
We also think that the buying market, the people that are purchasing dogs from you, they hold you accountable today. So you have to raise the bar. You have to do all the health testings. You have to be there for them. And they have more access to you through Facebook, email, all those things. So you're hearing from them more regularly about the puppy that's 3 years old, 5 years old, throughout the course of its lifetime, which is what we love. We love to get those pictures. But you're accountable to the end. We spoke last night about how we both have, taken dogs back at 12 years old. It's what you do. It's what we do. And you wouldn't do it any other way, because we are responsible, but more importantly, we are now accountable.
And when we mention the big tent, we as breeders and preservationist breeders and accountable breeders in this room and the core constituency of the American Kennel Club, we are the good guys, and we're doing it right, and we are the subject experts. We really, truly are. And in saying that, we do need, though, however, to expand our group. When I say our group, you don't have to breed to their dogs. They don't have to breed to your dogs. We need to expand our ideas of who the canine population is, because I will tell you, Doug and I are out there. The American Kennel Club is a small entity. I don't know if you know that or not, but we're a small group. We're the best group, but we're a small group. And the whole canine world is swirling around us out there, going on right now. And there are different ideas and ideals all over. And in saying that, it appears to me that most legislation right now is being written for high volume breeders, for breeders who are commercial. And it's not being written, for you or I, meaning smaller, and you might consider Doug and I high volume breeders for all I know. And
we're okay with that.
We're okay with that. And so in that, I just want to say that we do need to be more inclusive, because we are losing the battle. And we need to be more inclusive. I don't mean that we have to own what they do, but we have to join in making them better, raising their bar, making their existence of their dogs healthier and happier. And Doug and I, living in high-volume states, have seen this. The American Kennel Club also has some fabulous people there working with the high-volume breeders on a daily basis. Health testing is done on a weekly basis. They, in the town just north of where my farm is, this month there will be a health testing of the high-volume breeders in that region, and they'll have 300 dogs tested. Well, is that the remedy? Not necessarily, no, but isn't it a great beginning? We rub shoulders with people every day at dog shows who I can guarantee you, and Doug will all as well, is their facilities and their resources and the direction they're going in with breeding purebred dogs is a very, very good one. And
no, keep going. There you go.
sorry, I'm going to give it back to him.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
you're-
went the wrong way.
Go on. Oh, there we go. I don't know. That's where we are.
Okay, go on.
Okay. So back to the point of extinction, we're losing breeds. I think we're in a crisis. I mean, if you think about some of these, think about the bottom 10 breeds that are producing, 40, 30, 10 animals in that breed each. That's a crisis. And imagine what happens. And so what I talked about in a previous seminar was the plight of the polar bear and how the national attention of the polar bear or the Pacific walrus, they're supported by large corporations. Delta Airlines became very involved with the polar bear and Coca-Cola products. So everyone's investing, and we see all this stuff on the news. The interesting thing is that their population is large compared to a lot of the breeds that you have the privilege of seeing every weekend at a dog show. I mean, 20 to 25,000 dogs. I mean, you would never see that in your entire lifetime. Bobby Lewis has been in Sussex for 50-something years. The reality is he hasn't seen that many ever. So we don't see those numbers, and this is what they're considering endangered. So if you take that into our own dog population, we know how endangered those breeds are. And then you think about why these animals are endangered. They are losing their environment to live, just like breeders that are losing their environment to exist. And that's part of the problem.
Right, that's why we must reach legislators, why we hope that all parent clubs and member clubs would consider having a breeders organization within your clubs and go out and meet your legislators. It's interesting because legislators may even live just in your neighborhood. You don't realize it. I found it interesting. And, once we tell our story to them and people like Patty Strand goes into areas from the National Animal Interest Alliance and tells our story, or the AKC PAC, Sheila Goff, goes in and talks about who we are and what we're doing, they listen. They listen, and it turns the whole scenario around, most generally, but not always. And can I tell you, what's happening now, it's an unfortunate thing, but I don't know if you've noticed, but dinging on dog breeders has become a cause célèbre for politicians. And politicians are taking the banner because it's an easy, low-hanging target. And we are going to have a lot more work to do in the future. It's not going to get easier. It's going to be more difficult. And so we need to work on this specifically.
Well, and that's part of why we're here today, is to start to take back the messaging and pull back all of that. And so I say, buy a dog, save a breed. We can't do it alone. You have to broaden the umbrella and add a breed. Keep these breeds alive. I speak about rescuing. They love to use the word rescue. Well, I want you to start rescuing. I want you to start rescuing these low-entry breeds from extinction, because that's what's happening. Rescue a breed, breed a litter. Okay.
All right, so we talked a little bit more about accountability, and the AKC Preservationist Breeders have created the AKC Health Foundation. What great accountability. The only one of its kind. Many of you already know more about it than I could tell you, but it's an incredible organization that I support, and I hope that you all do as well, and I know you do, and I hope you continue. They've donated $47 million to saving our dogs from a variety of breed-specific anomalies and just canine anomalies, health anomalies. They've developed DNA markers which have made us, encouraged us to identify how we can breed up and to illuminate us as to those best choices instead of eliminating dogs. You know, can I just say, I do go, and because I just moved there, by the way, to Missouri 2 years ago, and so I go to these conferences that are offered by the Agriculture Committee of different states there that are specifically given, and they have the leading genealogists, the leading theriogenealogists, they have leading scientists who speak to them. We need that. We need those people. We need those people talking to us as dog breeders. They have a wealth of information that's incredible. And one thing I just want to mention is about breed diversity and that sort of thing, because part of bringing other people and dogs into our AKC world is that we're expanding our diversity. Our human diversity. Not only our dog diversity, but our human diversity. And so let's just look at one thing just briefly and quickly. So this isn't a breeding seminar, but let's look at hip dysplasia. We haven't been able to cure hip dysplasia because we've been doing it as best we can, and we've done a good job, but we're never going to cure it because the genealogists are telling us we've been doing it by almost like a blind study. Doug has excellent hips. I'm dysplastic. But guess what? The phenotype test doesn't tell you if he's going to produce excellent or dysplastic hips or nor I. So they're telling us, the genealogists are telling us that we should be breeding those affected dogs, unless, of course, it's a lethal gene. But we should have been breeding those, because those dogs might have 20 other healthy anomalies that we should have been bringing along with us rather than excluding them from the gene pool. So it's something interesting to talk about and to think about, because you know what we're all discovering is that science is moving so fast. They're telling us in the next decade we very well will have so many DNA genetic markers, maybe even for hip dysplasia. And when that happens, it's going to launch purebred dogs into the future, because we are the colony who's testing, and we are basically the only colony who cares to test and breed our dogs up and forward into better, happier, healthier lives.
Well, today, now is the time that we have access to the best research and testing that we've ever had. So we have the strongest canine colony around.
In that, we are in the best of times as breeders. They are the best of times. We have more information. We can do it more clearly, more freely, with better choices, and we are doing just that. And so that last slide mentioned that we are. Our colony of dogs are scientifically the most health tested and researched. We are. There is no other colony in the whole world. And so in that, we can legitimately say that primarily, particularly us, the core constituency, the breeders of merit, that we are breeding the healthiest colony in the world. And if they don't exist at this very moment, they will in the near future. Yeah, and that's what we were just talking about. Was the last slide was about what we were just talking about. So more accountability. So here we go. So we were just talking a little bit about this, but testing's used to eliminate the preservationist towards best choices. So it shouldn't be used to eliminate otherwise valuable dogs from gene pools. In most all cases, affected dogs can be bred up, and they're telling us that too, and that we need to be breeding our dogs up, because what we're doing is we're limiting diversity, and we don't have those choices of dogs that we used to have to breed to, and particularly when you have, as Doug calls his, a gene puddle rather than a gene pool. And so we expand that pool maybe that puddle into a pool by not eliminating every dog from, DM is an anomaly in our breed, Pembroke Welsh Corgis, by the way, and degenerative melanopathy. Well, we've discovered it's primarily an old age disease, but what they've discovered is every breed is different for the trigger that causes it to express itself. So they don't even know how to to deal with that. Now, they don't even have the marker for that. So every day we're learning something new and different, and that the weaving of genes is very fickle, and we have little control over it until we get these markers that we can genuinely make incredible choices. We are still doing the best job. And this, And this is another field that is fabulous, and thank you, Mr. Zook. There he's looking. There he is that the OFA. You know, if you want to buy a dog and you want to make sure it's healthy, then go to the OFA, right? And you can tell your puppy buyers this. If I want to breed into a family of dogs, and that's what I do. I don't breed to individual dogs. I breed to families of dogs, and because you can't breed to the flavor of the month, because you have to know what that family represents. Wouldn't it be great if we could get that whole family of dogs in a corral and look at them, and all of their apparent anomalies that are virtues and not would appear immediately, and you would know genetically what you're basically going to get from that family of dogs. But that's why the best breeders are observers. They're great observers, and they look at dogs over many, many decades of their breed, and they can identify those families of dogs. But anyway, the OFA is a fabulous entity that we have and we use, and we're thankful that it's there, and whoever thought of it, thank you. And
I think, too, though, this speaks to the accountability factor. And not to mention that, we, over the course of the past 10, 15 years, have educated buyers to make these choices, to go to websites, to do research on their dog. So they're getting some of the message. We're getting through to them on that level. If you want to check out the OFA website, they know to ask what are the hip scores, what's going on with the elbows. They know those questions. And that, I think, goes to parent club education, but also disseminating the information to the buying market.
All right, and so, dedicated welfare. So, rescue was invented in the halls of the American Kennel Club. It was you, the parent clubs, who ended up devising regional rescues and devising rescues, and we let that word go awry, and it's used by some groups who work against us and other groups who work with us. But rescue was invented. The American Kennel Club, as I remember, has 490 individual rescue organizations that they work with. It's phenomenal. But stepping back about that 5% of dogs that are in shelters, what we're doing well is we're placing them. So even before we talk about rescue, we're placing the dogs well. And that's something that's not happening in many other places in the random bred dogs.
We're rescuing random bred dogs.
Or even in rescues or in shelters. And that's why, once again, we're seeing large amounts of recidivism through the shelters. And so we talk about all of that, and we talk about the other things that we're all accountable for. And we've talked about most of these things, about parent clubs and about rescue and about the... it's not AKC Home again, is it? It's Reunite, right? Thank you. Sorry. I'll have to change that slide there. And about Reunite. And
but
so
these are, programs that started here.
Yeah.
That the American Kennel Club should be using to show how good we are at doing these things.
And that are messaging. All right. So... All right, and of course, the AKC's picked this up, and they're really working on this whole canine-human bond. This is something that we still own. All of us have family members that have grown up with purebred dogs and talk about that fabulous Vizsla that they grew up with and how incredible it was. And I want to have one day, and those sort of things. And we still own that narrative, and we should be promoting purebred dogs also through this human-canine bond, because we all have it. We all love dogs, and we all specifically have chosen to love. Not love, but to produce and breed and bring about the healthy, happy, purebred dogs and purpose-bred dogs.
Yes, and this is something I think that everyone relates to, because at the end of the day, families come home, they run to soccer practice or ballet or whatever they're doing with their families, and at the end of the day, they have dinner and they love their dog. So that is the commonality that we all share. No matter what breed it is, we come home to the family pet and love our dog. Okay.
So after speaking about purposeful bred and preservationist breeders, and of course they're only words, but you know, they're powerful words. They're words that are assimilating into our culture, and people are using them. We're using them. We see them every day now on Facebook. We see other countries. We see other countries coming up with narratives now that they're using these words in their verbiage in their promotion of their dogs and that sort of thing. We didn't invent the words, and we didn't really invent the application of them, but we did promote the application of them, and we brought them about so they are more prevalent in our culture, and that's what we all need to do. And when we go and talk to legislators, they like to hear these things. They believe it, you know, gives greater meaning and purpose to the conversation, and they listen even closer because it's something new. It's not the same old, and they don't already have predictive ideas about what we're going to talk about.
So let me just say something on that, is that we did not invent these are not new words. We've heard these words before, but the application is new. And prior to these seminars that we started, they were not used this way. And if you are on Facebook, which almost everybody is these days, you see these foreign kennel club registering bodies using these words. It's very powerful, I think.
It is, and you know what's really good about it is that we see more and more dog breeders feeling proud about themselves, about using and coming forward and talking about who they are, and using this kind of verbiage. You know, we discovered a long time ago, or should I say the boarding, the kennel boarding business. Some of you probably own kennels. Well, the verbiage, for kennels changed 15 years ago. They no longer call them kennels. They're suites. The dog goes into a suite. They're pet resorts. They no longer have day lodging. They have day care. So it's all, see, they're way ahead of us. A lot of them are way ahead of us in all of this sort of stuff. We chuckle at it, but you know what? The people out there, the people, not us who exist in this vacuum, but the people out around us, they love that sort of stuff. We have to
get in front of this message. We're not there yet. And that was where I think Bill and I sort of like stomp up and down about, is that we're behind. We're behind this instead of way out in front.
And we are, again, as my friend Patty Strand says, we are the subject experts, and we are. You don't think you are until you start talking to someone, right, in the grocery store about dogs, and you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, you don't even have... Or how about if you go and talk to legislators? When AB 1634 appeared in the state of California, which represented almost 17% of AKC's registrations, and they wanted to spay and neuter every cat and dog in the state of California, we would go in and talk to legislators, and they wanted to know how many breeding pairs we needed to keep. So and then we started thinking, should we even tell them that we use semen from other countries? So they might want to eliminate that too. But anyway, so they're just like us, you know. If you bring them to another subject, they're not the subject expert. So we need to go to them and let them know why we are the subject experts, and fill them in and give them good information. And that's another reason I am so supportive of the AKC PAC and the National Animal Interest Alliance, is because they go in with facts. They don't. You know, I'm kind of Scottish, and I lend myself to a bit of exaggeration, but I try not to.
Just a little.
Yeah, I try not to. But it's when you go in with the facts, they're willing to listen, and they change their minds.
I want to make sure we have time to get to that.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, at the end of the day, it's perhaps not really the purebred dog breeder that we have to advocate for, but perhaps the purebred purposeful dog breeder we need to advocate for, because they're the ones who bring dogs about. And you know, this whole organization, we wanted to see who we might talk to. We wanted to see if there was a breeders committee, a standing committee for breeders. We couldn't find it. We wanted to see if there was a vice president of the American Kennel Club of breeders. We couldn't find it. And if we don't breed, if we don't have purposefully bred, purebred dogs, then what's going to happen? I think we're already seeing it. I think we're seeing our AKC sport flatlining somewhat. And the reason is because we no longer, the American Kennel Club is more of an organization that's about dog shows and the sport. We've created this whole industry around the sport of purebred dogs, but we haven't created an industry, or we haven't created an educational program about the breeding of dogs. We need more about the breeding of dogs. Every parent club should have a breeders committee. All breed clubs should have a breeders committee. Every parent club should have a breeders Facebook, and it should be worked. I see some do, but they're not worked. Every AKC delegate club, member club, should have a Facebook page. We should be promoting who we are and be proud of it. Not be hiding behind anything, but putting the words out there and moving forward. So, you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that we believe that if there was such a thing, and we can turn that message around, that it fixes a multitude of problems. So much focus on judges' education, on advancement, how to get judges through a program, when they're faced with maybe a little lesser in quality animal than is ideal. And if you raise the quality of dogs being produced through educational means, lots of parent club education, seminars, weekend retreats, like AKC Judges Institute on judges or on breeders breeding dogs instead, we think that would be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, why aren't we training our dogs, our judges at the front end as breeders?
Trained from here.
To be judges, instead of at the back end trying to make them judges when they've never even bred a dog, possibly. I know that the prerequisite...
Well, we're glad you like that, because that's the whole mission today, is to get you to figure this one out. Yeah. We need that desperately. It needs to come around. We talked about it being, it's like the cart before the horse situation.
Yes.
You have to have good breeders and able to make good judges. If you've never seen a good one, you'll never know what it is. And you need to have breeders do that. So we need a lot of focus, I think, switch to a breeders forum type situation.
And so we've hit on most of these challenges specifically, but I think social pressures and the animal rights activists and that social group, that group opposed to us as dog breeders, is our biggest thing that we need to turn around, and it certainly can be, and it can be with more directive marketing of who we are and what we do, because as I've mentioned, we are genuinely the good guys and we are doing it best. And the second thing is the subculture focused on exhibiting dogs rather than breeding them is something that I think that we really need to look at, and that we need to spend more dollars on, and to spend more time on. And the organizations that are helping us do that most, I have found, within the American Kennel Club, is the AKC PAC and the AKC Health Foundation. They're fabulous organizations who help me move ahead as an individual breeder. And I hope you do support both of those organizations.
Yeah, and the loss of our message, I think we've spoken a little bit about that. Reclaiming and redefining words. We have to take it back. And then, of course, we're all, someone pointed out today, she's getting ready to retire from breeding. Well, we're all getting older, but we can fight it, and we can find yourself a replacement.
And let's face
That's
it,
what we have to do.
Yeah, let's face it, Doug and I traveled to many other countries, and it's an interesting anomaly. In other countries, the way they approach things is very different. It's actually against the law in some countries to actually neuter your dog without having first a reason and why it should be neutered or spayed. You go to other countries and you walk the streets, and all you see is purebred dogs. You don't see. It's an interesting anomaly in our culture. It's very diverse and very different from many other countries. You'll see 40 dogs on the street. Even Japan. You'll go to Japan and there'll be 50 dogs. You'll see 50 dogs. They'll all be purebred. It's a very interesting anomaly that they in other countries they prize purebred and purposefully bred dogs, where we have an issue here where shelter rescue dogs, and every dog deserves a good home. But can I tell you, the reason Labradoodles sell for $5,000 is, guess what? They market them. They let people know they have them. They let people know that why they believe they're better, and they're telling their story. They're putting their message out there, and people are eating it up because we have a pet resort. and you notice I say pet resort, is that in that pet resort, I'll bet you 25 to 30% of our grooming, training, lodging, and people who buy products from us are some variety of Labradoodle. Not because they're the best, but because they're marketed. And that's part of our message, is we need to market what we do. You know, this sport grew exponentially through the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. We didn't do a lot. We didn't do much at all except reap the benefits. But now we have to do something. We have to step up and be a different community and send our message out and get it known.
Well, the doodle community is getting more money for their dogs than most of us are getting for ours. So this is a huge problem.
And we shouldn't be angry about that. I hear breeders talk angrily about it. I'm like going, good for them.
Absolutely.
You know?
They did
Yeah.
a great job of marketing what they're doing. And we should learn from that, sadly. All right, let's move on to this one.
Oh, okay. So we quickly put up a few things that we thought we could look towards and help to help us. So obviously, create clear paths for all breeders to succeed, and the American Kennel Club is doing a good job of that. Particularly, well, we need more for us, the core constituency. We would like more. I think the AKC depends on the parent clubs to disseminate that information. But in the Midwest, where there are a larger number of commercial professional breeders, there is education being brought to them, but not only by the American Kennel Club, but by their ag departments. And as I mentioned, in many ways, and there's people in this room who worked on that project, is they brought about one of the best models of, one of the better models or best models of dog breeding and dog breeding licensing in the state of Missouri. It's almost not that everything's perfect there, but it's a model state for licensing all breeders, inspection and education. And that's where I've been able to go and find out a lot of great information on many of these seminars that they offer that I mentioned, our leading scientists who give those. Now,
And that's something that we hope will happen. I mean, I'm very interested in seeing the AKC put on an event like that. You know, how to breed dogs, tools to breed
meaning
better
for
dogs.
us, the core constituency, that we have access to these genologists, these theriogenologists, to all of these people, and to the newest information in science, and about zoonotic disease, and about inheritable disease, and how genetically we can breed our dogs better and away from inheritable disease. And that's the kind of seminars. There's going to be one, by the way, in Missouri this weekend. It's being put on by the Missouri Animal Husbandry Association, and it's a great intellectual opportunity, if any of you, educational opportunity if you go. And there'll be a lot of different kinds of breeders there, and it's interesting to get all of their perspectives. Now, we also, so some other things is, you know, the whole, as we mentioned, everything's focused in our sport, it seems, around the exhibiting, or in purebred dogs and purposeful bred dogs, around the exhibiting of dogs. We don't have, we have a junior handling program, but we don't have a junior breeding program. And I and Doug go around, and we're starting to do more, and we're booked to do a few, and we're speaking to individual kennel clubs and to parent clubs and that sort of thing on a variety of things, because we also have other breeding type presentations. However, we're discovering, and we go out to these outlying areas, and we invite everyone. We invite legislators to come. We encourage them to invite the FFA to come. We encourage the 4-H members. At the last one I did one this week, a fabulous thank you, Barry Rose, and other people in that region of Oklahoma who put on a seminar, and the FFA came, and the 4-H came, and they talked to us about how they encourage people to move forward and be better breeders and be part of the purpose-bred and preservation breeding community.
Breeders Ed for all. I mean, we got a round of applause already on that one. We want to see a Breeders Ed committee in every parent club so that we can get information to the breeders of those breeds, how to breed them, what to do, mentorship, all of those things fall under that. And it could be celebrated just like the Owner Handled series is celebrated if we were to put that back into the realm of the dog show. It's vitally important. Your people are thirsty and hungry for this information. They don't have it. I feel like there's a bit of a talent gap that we've experienced in breeding, and that is missing, and that would fill that void.
Absolutely. And then you did cover the Parent Club Breeders Committee?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So what about the 4 to 6 puppy class? Did you know that if you're considered a professional, you can't take your puppies? Even if you're a breeder of dogs, you can't go to an AKC event and show your 4 to 6 puppy if you're a professional. Gosh, I'm a breeder. I should be able to take, I'll wear a black armband. How about that? You don't have to place my dog. I want to be there for the experience. I want to go into that ring and participate with my puppy, you know? And so I don't have to be placed. You can place all the other people, but I love bringing my puppies along.
Well, we don't understand why that even is a rule. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
There's stuff like that comes about that needs to be remedied or changed to some degree. Breeders' competition, not just, but along with the NOHS. You know, why if we're an it's a great project. And by me, I say also Carmen Battaglia. I was opposed first for one dog, one bitch, 1 point. I see its usefulness. I live in the Midwest now, and I see its usefulness. And thank you for bringing that along. I was initially opposed, but I think it's a good thing. So, but I also see the NOHS and Robin Stansel was the one that was ahead of that program in the very beginning, and it's a great program. But why didn't we do it for breeders too? And we could easily do it for breeders. You know, we could have rather than, I know you're going to say, oh my gosh, you guys
it's
are
getting
judges.
long, the day is
oh
getting
my
long.
Goodness. But you could have a different dot or something identifying. They could all compete together. You're the owner handler, you're the breeder handler. Okay, you're going to go in that group, you're going to go in that group. But anyway, we need more breeders competitions. That's
there
why
needs to be a breeders competition.
Yeah, we need more breeders competitions. And that's why we all love the Santa Barbara.
It's really go ahead.
We love Santa Barbara. We love all of those breeders competitions that existed.
They did it at the AKC show.
Yeah, we loved it when the AKC did it at the Invitational at the AKC show, and it was a great. And they did it regionally. It was fabulous. It was a place where we could go and be proud of ourselves and of what we do and the dogs that we produce.
Well, it's a good venue too. I mean, part of, you know, to ignore the benefits of dog showing and just speak to dog breeding it is a bit of a fallacy. The reality is that the dog show serves a purpose on multiple levels, and one of which is exposure to the breeder and having them bring their dogs and be proud of what they have. So that competition, a nationwide competition, would be a wonderful thing.
We need to encourage all breed clubs to once again reach out to their communities. And if you don't hold your show in your local community, I wish you did, but I understand the difficulty in doing so sometimes. But we hope that you put on programs for your local community. You know, bench shows used to be places where people like Doug and I could go, show our dogs, and we could meet the local residents and the people. We'd rub elbows with them. We would share experiences. They would see our dogs. They would know who we are. Now, Meets the Breeds has replaced that in some places, but there isn't enough of it. You know, we're isolated. We exist in a vacuum. Our events aren't attended very well anymore because, once again, marketing. We need to do better marketing. We need to get our message out there and send a clearer message to all people that you're welcome. We want you to come and meet us and our dogs, and that we're here for your pleasure as well as our own. And it's an important thing that we need to change the paradigm, because if we don't, we will continue to flatline or even become less. All right.
You want to speak to limited registration?
Oh. Well, this will be a popular one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we just want to mention about limited registrations and about, we were talking about about diversity, and some people brought this up, and in the old days, you know, if I wanted to eliminate a dog from the gene pool, I spayed and neutered it. And then I sent it out, or I kept it, I spayed and neutered it, or I had the people, I held the registration by the AKC's rules, and listed the registration number, the dam, sire, et cetera, and the puppy's litter registration, and I waited until they gave me documentation. Checking a box on a registration really does nothing, because I can tell you those dogs are still being bred. They're not spaying and neutering all of them. When you go to judge in China, the kennel clubs there, they'll say, would you look at 10 dogs at the end of the day? And we go, what for? Well, would you tell us if they're purebred or not? Okay, purebred, no, yes, okay. Oh, guess what? Those dogs are registered. So theoretically, someone could buy a dog from you on a limited registration, go there and have their dog registered. Your pedigree could end up coming right back to you in many cases. Mary Beth could speak to that more, but yeah. She's not going to. Okay.
She's not touching that one.
Yeah.
Well, limited registration, not so limited.
Yeah. So anyway, what we're saying is this. When I was a kid, we were a lot more open-minded about new people, new breeders, new avenues to breeding. We're much more closed-minded now. Even the people in this room, we discovered that many of you don't breed, and many of you haven't bred for a while. And so we want to turn the narrative around, and we want people to feel proud about if they do breed conscientiously for companions and well-bred dogs, and they are preservationists of their breeds, and they're moving forward in that direction, that they once again will be happy and proud of themselves. So.
Yeah, we appreciate coming today. And my closing thought is to rethink breeding, come back to breeding, and breed another litter. We need you.
Shouldn't the American Kennel Club be about dog breeders first and about exhibiting perhaps second? Isn't exhibiting the result of dog breeding?
Yeah. We think for and by dog breeding.
And we don't all have to agree, as I mentioned earlier, on what is accountable, what is responsible, but we all will have to agree on what's accountable.
Thank you, folks.
Yep. Thank you very much.